Welcome back to Diomedes Abridged in Total War Troy, where last time we were attacking Crete. Our allies were doing so at the same time, inconveniently, so we didn't get that much of it, but it was successful overall. At some point during that war, the Trojan War also started, so we'll be looking at that at the same time. Diomedes has just got done conquering his way to the east end of Crete. We're now going to switch focus to our home front, where the Trojans are right outside our gates. They're just there next to Marathon. We've even got Paris of Troy himself up there with Helen at a nearby city. So they're making landfall and more Trojans are on the way. I wanted to counterattack by sending this army to quickly take this port. But it's going to be less easy than I thought, because they actually had another army standing just outside it. It's a balanced engagement as we go into attack. But it's actually a bit better than it looks, because we know most of their units are reinforcements, and this game straight up tells you where the enemy's reinforcements are going to appear on the map. So we can do the classic Total War trick of just deploying on the edge of the map to fight them immediately, but it's easier than usual because you know exactly where they're going to appear, and boom, here are the first few seconds of the battle. We're right in front of their reinforcements as they spawn in. So we'll just box them into this little section and try to take them down nice and easy. It will be simple for us to surround certain units by coming in on the flanks, and that will be that. We don't have a gigantic advantage against them, but we should have more stuff than them because their other part of the army, the part that deployed originally, simply isn't here. We've got a bad engagement right here because their swords are getting their bonus damage against my spears. Luckily, we've got tons of guys, bonus damage against everything. Now, I figured in this fight that their original army would just hang out in their deployment zone and actually not participate. Looks like I was underestimating the AI a little bit again, because they do come and support this attack. And I straight up did not notice while playing. I didn't even look in that direction, so I didn't see them attacking me until later. Good gameplay. At least the main fight I was focusing on is going well. We've got here some Knight Runners, a high quality light sword unit, perfect for quickly going around the edge of a formation and attacking the back, which they're doing right now, and that's working pretty well. Here's the point. When I noticed something was happening behind my lines, because the warriors are wavering thing comes up, and there we go, we're finally reacting to the presence of the enemy behind us. I had one unit that wasn't engaged, so I could just send them in that general direction to distract the oncoming enemy army while we try to finish off the main blob. And here is that point. Once we get a chain route going, they're going to be quite heavily damaged as they escape. We can't quite trap them and completely wipe them out because this is a issue with Total War Troy basically. It used to be worse, I seem to remember. When the game came out, it was extremely difficult to fight units that were surrounded. They would just sort of phase onto the other side of the surround and escape. Now, you can sort of kill them, but they also jank their way out and your guys don't attack very much, so it's not quite there, but it's better than it was. Now, as I rushed forward to just overwhelm the remaining units, some more enemy reinforcements showed up, and I thought this was strange because normally the AI is allowed to deploy 80 units on the field to your 40, as long as they're split between multiple AI factions. But even if it was just the 40 versus 40 limit, they should have been able to fit their whole army on the field, so I'm not quite sure why those units waited to show up. I wonder if there are some rules about the area they need to deploy into being somewhat clear before they can do it or something. Whatever the case, the point is that we had to do another mini battle in the same place, mostly against skirmishers. We can just run into them and get them stuck against the edge of the map. They'll just rout and then instantly leave, so we're not going to do much damage, but it will bring this battle to a close. So here we are in the aftermath. He just cut that guy's head off with a slash of a spear. Now that seems like a very heroic thing to do. We haven't killed that much of the enemy's big army, but that wasn't necessarily what I was here to do anyway. I just wanted to take the port. And there we go, we've taken the port.
Progress feels good.
Looks like their army got deleted or something, it's just not here. Perhaps because that was technically a siege assault, the delete everything rule applies to reinforcements outside the town. Not really sure about that, but they're gone. And now I started looking over here because Helen is at the next town over. There's some debuff that Paris's faction gets if you take Helen. Maybe you get a buff as well, I don't quite know. I did play as Paris when the game came out, but I don't remember what the entire gimmick was. There's some reason why we should go after Helen, so that was something to keep in mind. Back down on Crete though, the war continues and finally our enemies are going to strike against us. This was sort of inevitable, there's not too much we can do. They've got more troops than us so they can go around us and attack our thinly defended settlements. Annoying, but in this case we can actually bring down their main force immediately because Diomedes is only one turn away from the place they just took. We attack and while they have numbers on their side, they've got tons of trash, loads of those young spears, the lowest tier of unit. Whereas our army has lots of middle tier units, tons of experience, equipment upgrades, and it's led by a heroic general giving more buffs. So we can just auto-resolve them into submission immediately. And that's that. We've just taken out what are, as far as we know, the majority of their forces. We did lose, though, a couple of units. Not that bad, actually. We lost our Argive warriors units, the ones that I do need to replace anyway. I would have replaced them earlier in the campaign when I was refitting the army. I just didn't want to because they had the special of Stenthalos upgrade or whatever it was called from the veteran training mechanic. But now that they're gone, we can get those veteran trained versions of the next tier up and it will be better. So there's my excuse for losing troops. It's going to help us in the long run and of course losing troops always saves money. Was hoping to get out of the war right now, but they're still really not interested. I felt like they should feel under pressure by this point. We've taken 3/4 of their territory and defeated a couple of their armies. No, they're up for continuing this. I could actually use my dominance to force them out of the war at this stage. The only reason I didn't was because I had a warning saying I'll lose reputation if I end the war. I think the war hasn't been going on for long enough for people to think that peace is a good idea in general, so it will be embarrassing for us to peace out something, so we just keep going. On the Trojan front, I became aware of the fact that if I went after Helen's location, they could swoop around and attack our port from the south pretty easily. In fact, they can do it right now from their current position. With that in mind, I decided to hang about near the town a bit more and be more defensive. I even figured we might as well bring over the other army that's currently defending near Marathon, because the enemy will probably attack this area here first, so we've made this pile of stuff. But then with these extra units defending the port, I thought, well, maybe I actually can go after Helen, the dream isn't quite dead. So I started moving the main force, using forced march, back to the road, to think about doing that next time. And all those maneuvers are what leads to the next battle. We get attacked while in forced march by some landing enemy forces, but they suck, meaning it's not so bad. They've brought tons of tier 1 units, they're just absolutely spamming them by the looks of things. Handy stuff. With that in mind, I went for the save and auto-resolve strategy just in case I refuse to accept the auto-resolve. I've still got my time machine at the ready. In this case we don't have to break time because it was fine. The enemy army gets trashed, we're looking good, we'll even replenish because we're in our own lands. That's another invasion warded off. As for the purple guys, they didn't make the second invasion I was expecting with their army on the south coast of Crete. I decided to start moving Diomedes back to the northeastern coast, so we can go out into the sea at some point. The enemy's last territory is just to our northeast somewhere. We're also going to do a follow-up auto-resolve on the army we just killed, to kill them some more. So there we go, one stack down. But as you can see in the background, there are loads more stacks all over the place. Therefore, going for Helen is not a feasible option, as Paris just told me there. Essentially, I'm going to now be defensive again. I'm just constantly second guessing myself, not really sure what to do here. It's because I don't really have any faith in the armies that aren't Diomedes, because they're not buffed up, they're not leveled up, they don't have the upgrades. I just don't have the presumption of victory I have when Diomedes storms into a location. With that in mind, we're going to do some defensive ambushes, because if this enemy spammed group of armies comes down to attack us, which it very well might, they're probably going to walk past those forests and get ambushed. Going into the next turn, we've got a new war starting. This will turn out to be more important than it is at first. The Amazons are actually a gigantic faction on the map at the moment, so being at war with them will have some consequences for us. One of the Trojan factions wants peace here, but it's another case where I've got this warning saying I'll lose reputation if I take the peace deal. They're even willing to give me some stuff. I'm going to reject it, even though I do want it to keep my reputation, trying to keep our diplomacy as open as possible. Probably should have actually taken it, really, the diplomatic hit to exiting a war. is smaller than the one you get for like betraying an alliance or something, I later found out. With Diomedes, you can see the enemy have moved out into the sea, so I'm going to move to a strategic position. From this spot in the sea, we can either go back to defend if the enemy army moves in that direction, or go on to attack next turn if the coast looks clear. This coast right here is not going to be clear, because there are tons of enemy armies coming right towards it, and these two stacks are facing the beach, suggesting the AI intends to land the troops right in front of me. With that in mind, we are again just going to use an ambush right in front of the beach, and most importantly between the beach and our settlement. Spotted these allies near Paris. I wanted to give them a war coordination target to attack Paris. They're actually not in the war. The Trojan War is less Trojan War-ish than I thought. A lot of the Greek factions appear to have pieced out early on, and in some cases it's just us fighting certain Trojan factions, which is annoying, but I didn't really know that at this time. I ended up getting that peace deal that I refused earlier and getting some resources off it, so that's handy, but those guys weren't actually the ones attacking me, so it doesn't make much of a material difference. What we do get though is the ambush I was looking for. At least one of the stacks actually landed at the beach where I thought they were going to land, and we've got the ambush. We don't have that much of an advantage though, because this time they've brought a few good units. But at least we have the initiative that comes from this being an ambush. We can deploy right next to them and start fights immediately, which allows us to choose which weapon types are fighting which other weapon types on their side, and go for the advantages in the mod. Plus, as you can see, the enemy kind of all went to one side of my two-sided ambush, so we're going to get some big rear attacks coming in. Really, we don't need to worry about things like the weapon triangle. We've just immediately surrounded loads of their blocks, so despite the balance bar being even, we'll have a morale advantage. We don't have to kill them as much as they have to kill us to get the troops to leave. And indeed, some of the fights don't last very long at all. We take out some of the lower tier units. That of course only frees up more of our units to do more of the same kind of thing. Here we've just got a straight up better spears against their spears system. That will do fine. Our spears at the back are fighting the enemy skirmishers. They'll do fine as well. Essentially we've won this battle by this stage. It was over in the first minute. Now we're just cleaning this place up. Their heavy spear units survived a bit longer than everything else, but the army losses, morale penalty. We'll get rid of them. Then we'll just chase them to the edge of the map and make sure we get maximum kills here. But we can skip over that. A successful ambush. The game is pretty cheeky here actually. It claims we get a close victory, first revealed by this animation looking a little bit not on our side. And that really was not a close victory. We absolutely annihilated them. We lost virtually nothing, and it will be nothing once our replenishment kicks in for this turn. And they are gone. I'm actually going to do the kill captives option here, which usually isn't really worth it in my opinion, but here our general particularly likes it and gets some motivation for doing it. Maybe that will help. That's one victory, but we've got plenty more to come, because more armies are throwing themselves at our shores. We still need to play things quite defensively, especially with 3 armies between us and Helen. At Marathon now, we face an attack. I was neglecting to defend this area, thinking that it was somewhat safe behind all of our allies and stuff, but not really. We've actually got another Greek faction attacking it right now. Don't even remember when we started a war with whoever these guys are or why we're at war with them, but here we are. I wanted to auto-resolve this because I wasn't very interested in the fight, but it says we'd lose, and it's a fight we'd probably win in real life, so here we are doing it in real life, to the extent that this is real life. We've got an easy plan. We split our army into 2 groups. One group defends the entrances the enemy are attacking, which fortunately are just these 2 next to each other, and the other group goes around the back. Pretty simple, and it's going to be pretty effective as well. As long as the AI doesn't really aggro onto your second group, we can just stand here and freely attack them. I've got 3 units of slingers and a unit of archers back there, and a couple of melee units defending them. We didn't need the melee units, they could have just been in the main fight, because the enemy completely ignored the slingers and got killed by them, because all of the added damage the slingers do makes those melees easy to win. That's one of the entrances secured. Now we move over to focus on the other one. Things aren't going quite so well here because I didn't really support that attack, I just focused entirely on the first one. Now though, these slingers have their time to shine, and they can even outshine the archers. The archers can stand there shooting at close range, but the slingers can be in a massive crowd further back and absolutely rain shots on the enemy blob. I was even so diligent as to move some of my troops out of the way to get less friendly fire. Probably not necessary. We end up annihilating that enemy army, and this time the game gives me a decisive victory. That's a bit more like it. It actually went worse than the previous battle, so who knows how it is calculating what quality a victory is. I think it does actually matter because it changes how much experience your general gets for participating, as far as I know. Back with our Trojan War, things are looking pretty good because the enemy have gone back towards their last remaining settlement. So no longer do we have the threat of annoying attack. Instead, it's us annoyingly attacking them. We press forwards and attack their stuff in the sea, which was a smaller army of trash, meaning they just go down instantly when we make contact. Good stuff. We're going to pick up millions of traits here for winning that fight. Diomedes is now an extremely good character. He just has billions of positive traits and he's high level as well. Plus, he's an overpowered DLC character to begin with. He rarely takes damage and that will be useful for us as we go on. What we need to do is take this walled city in front of us. The issue is, not only does it have half a stack of troops in it, it's got more than half a stack of garrison because it has a leveled up garrison building inside. So it will be more difficult than usual to attack this particular location. With that in mind, I wanted to get peace, but they still weren't interested. We can still actually force peace here, but I thought, no, let's not waste our dominance. Let's actually try and do it. We can go and start a siege. It's still roughly even. We're going to leave it under siege and start making rams. Ideally, they would sally out against us, but in this game, the AI tends to be quite good about not doing that. It's usually a bad idea, but sometimes the AI will detect that it has a 1 pixel advantage on the balance bar and go for it to get itself killed. Holding out hope. As for the Trojan front, as mentioned, there are tons of things between us and Helen, so we're not really going to focus on going in that direction anymore. We can quickly finish off the survivors of our last battle. That's a bit of experience for our terrible trash army. And now we're going to play things safe. We're going to stick to the forests. We can put ambushes near both the coasts and the roads at the same time, really, because the area is so small. So if we get rushed by a large number of armies, which appears to be what the enemy are setting up for, we've got something to defend against it. I was going to do a classic baiting strategy. We can have our inferior army stand on the road. The AI will smell how weak they are and throw everything they have against it and then get ambushed. But then I realized, actually, if I do this, the army off to the right of the screen right now can sweep around and take the settlement behind us. We've just got so many enemy armies all over the place. We can't do anything even slightly edgy. We need to play it as safe as possible and stay at least in reinforcement range of the town. So no baiting strategy this time. We've got enemy forces moving down near Marathon there, but before we can look any more at that, we do get attacked, or I should say we're attacking the enemy, technically. It's an ambush. One of their stacks comes down the road and gets ambushed. It's a stack that's packed with clubs. This is a disadvantage we have against the Trojans in general. Because my armies are very much based on axes as the Argives, and the Trojans have lots of club units, they're going to often have bonus damage against us. In this case, I don't think that's going to be enough to save them, because we can immediately do, well, the same thing that happened in the last ambush, really. The AI pressed all of its units against one side of the ambush, allowing us to freely rear attack them. If they were very strategic, they could split up their units in such a way that they're less blobby and take frontal attacks in most cases. That would make it harder for us to grind them down, but this is the ideal situation. It's even ideal right here because they happen to be having their backs facing where all of my slingers are located. They're behind some rocks for extra protection, not that they need it, and they are mowing down the enemy with the stupid death animations that were presumably just imported from Total War Warhammer or something and look very weird. But anyway, that aside, this battle is going to be an absolute slaughter. Now we just wait for these blocks to rout, and while they're going to have the mysterious routing wait thing where they just push out and don't die, we can again chase them to the edge of the map in action that I will be cutting out to get us to this point. We annihilated another Trojan army. Minimal damage. We're in our own territory, so the damage will be healed immediately afterwards anyway. That's all looking good. But of course the Trojans do have numbers on their side, so immediately 2 more armies come to challenge our force. Still a balanced engagement, but we don't need to fight this one. We might as well retreat and see if we can get the same fight going, but with our other army involved, or with the town garrison or something. In this case they just edge forwards and don't press the attack. But there are still more and more Trojan armies coming over. And we're really in a strategic situation where all of these victories we keep winning, they're not doing anything. We're just stopping ourselves from making back progress, because every time we kill an enemy, the enemy faction has more money to rebuy that army and send it at us again. There's no manpower system or anything like that in the game, so there's no limit to the amount of times they can just send another stack to attack us here. So as we sit here facing like 4 or 5 stacks still, even after our victories, it's getting to the point when our strategy is just going to be try not to lose too much and wait for Diomedes to come and show up and maybe resolve the situation. Essentially, to actually resolve the situation, we have to attack Troy and take out their economy. We can't just keep defending against them so far from their territory. Or peace out of the war, that would be good as well, but they're not interested. Might have also spotted there that Rhodes, who we're also at war with, have a full stack in the sea that appears to be moving past Diomedes to go back towards Crete. That could be very annoying. So, annoying stuff on all fronts. We're just facing very large numbers of armies at the same time. Our allies aren't helping as much as I'd like them to, or at all in many cases. Well, we'll keep going. As long as Diomedes can continue to push, we should eventually push all the way around the map and maybe resolve this. I don't know.